Hey everyone, this is the second part of last week's episode. If you didn't hear it, hit pause, go back a week to catch up.
Well, and toddler, young kids, they love their grandparents. Their grandparents are sometimes this mythical person. Doesn't say no, gives candy.
Oh my gosh.
Is always fun. And now this person lives in their house. How exciting. Grandma's here all the time.
Right.
And if they're anything, if your grandparents or your loved one are anything like my parents, my son is my mother's light of her life. God help me. My mother could say no to me like that. But for my son,
he's her kryptonite.
Whatever that child wants, he will get.
Right.
And so it is that being enamored with each other. So they're going to gravitate to each other.
Hi everyone, I'm Lexi Calise. Do you feel the squeeze of caring for an elderly loved one and school-aged children? Then welcome to the Sandwich Stories. Let's dig in.
But moving back to locks, everything from child locks and for younger kids who transition into older kids and teenagers. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying anybody has a bad child because we've all raised perfect angels. But to the degree that we have perfect angels who have little devils for friends who may encourage them to do bad things, you're also talking about your alcohol collection. You're also talking about your prescription medications.
Yep.
In other dire, worst scenarios, we have kids who are afflicted with depression or some other mind-altering situation that is just, you want to make sure that things are locked up to the degree that they can be.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if somebody wants in it, they're going to get in it. If they actually take a sledgehammer to it.
Yeah.
So, but locking things up, you don't have to be very high tech because usually it's just a redirect. Like, you're not supposed to be messing in there. Well, I can't mess in there. Well, you figured that out. Well, you messed about and you became enlightened and you moved on.
Right.
But to the degree, those magnetic locks are amazing inventions that work very, very well.
And I always kept a key, actually. So if the sink was here, my refrigerator was over here, I would keep the key actually stuck on the refrigerator like a magnet. Mm-hmm. So you had to be able to reach to the refrigerator to get the lock to then go unlock under the sink.
Well, and if you still do have knobs in the house, the little knob slip covers that won't allow you to grip it. Most people have arthritis or some sort of, when you move back into aging parents or the elderly, their grip strength isn't very good at all. So when they grab hold of that front door that they're not supposed to be moving out of, they don't have the grip strength to turn the knob.
Yeah.
So just to kind of showcase how a lot of child-proofing and aging in place proofing products can be dual-use technology. Yes. That's something that's definitely available.
And maybe with that, if you do have little ones, if you're letting your loved one move in with you and you have little ones in your house, so now you have both ends. You are truly sandwiched. You have a little one and you have your loved one all in the same household. Maybe some people like to make sure that the toilets lock because toddlers tend to think toilets are fun and that they like to see things go down. They're all curious. It's all part of their learning experience. But it's also not safe because, as we all know, 1 inch of water can cause a child to drown.
For sure.
So I know I've been in homes with those toilet locks on it. I almost couldn't use the toilet. I didn't know how to unlock it.
Nobody wants to be in that situation.
But maybe those are the situations where your loved one might have their own toilet that they are able to use without a lock on it. But the rest of the toilets might have a lock on it. And then that's when you might want to think about things that, your loved one, you have a toddler, can't turn the knob yet, but your loved one might still be able to use a circle knob. Mm-hmm. Then maybe that's when you put the lock on there and so the toddler can't go into grandma's bathroom, but grandma could still use the toilet because she needs dignity and be able to use the toilet.
True.
Or even higher up flip locks that maybe your loved one can flip open so that the door can unlock, but then toddlers yet again can't reach it and don't have the dexterity to turn a flip lock.
And it also allows you when the toddlers get a little bit older and they're, I would say, even go so far as to say like 5 or 6 years old, you're able to have a conversation with them about a buddy system.
Yeah.
And how they're asking just innocuous, basic, childish questions of said aging in place parent. Did you turn out the light? Okay, I'll get it for you.
Yeah.
Just have those conversations where you're buddying up, you're both looking out for each other, and it allows them to participate in this elephant in the room that they see every day going on, but they don't really understand because they've been to their friends' houses and it's not like that.
Right.
That's true. So that's definitely something you want to have as early as you possibly feel is comfortable for your child. But like I said, 5 or 6 years old is not too young to start incorporating that type of knowledge base into their life.
Well, and toddler, young kids, they love their grandparents. Their grandparents are sometimes this mythical person. Doesn't say no, gives candy.
Oh my gosh.
Is always fun. And now this person lives in their house. How exciting. Grandma's here all the time.
Right.
And so, and if they're anything, if your grandparents or your loved one are anything like my parents, my son is my mother's light of her life. That, God help me. My mother could say no to me like that. But for my son,
he's her kryptonite.
Whatever that child wants, he will get.
Right.
And so it is that being enamored with each other. So they're going to gravitate to each other. And it, like you said, if they can buddy up and be able to help each other out, then I think that takes some weight off of the person in the middle, because you're not the one always being the bad guy. You're not always being the one reminding people.
It's like having an assistant at work.
It is, because they're going to...
they're not capable of doing the job all by themselves.
Yeah.
They can take some of that burden away from you. And they can even check you when you're having that day of chaos and you forget something.
Right.
And they're like, hey, didn't we do this yesterday? And you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what was supposed to happen.
Right.
Thank you. High five them. Everybody moves on.
Yeah, everybody gets a sticker.
Yeah.
We're gonna all get a star chart. We've got a star chart. We get cards out of that treasure chest. Everyone's getting M&Ms today.
Awesome. Yes.
But yeah, I think you're right. Letting children be the buddy to the elderly loved one, because your loved one doesn't always take kindly to the fact that their child is now the boss, and your younger child does not always take kindly to the fact that you are the boss.
Because nobody likes to hear calm down.
Yes. And so they can talk to each other. It's just fun. It's a game. It's all these things. And like you said, it takes some pressure off of the middle person.
For sure.
You don't always have to be the bad guy, because, it sounds so much sweeter coming from a 3-year-old.
And if they're going to get what they want, I mean, you can even, it's like when kids are like, hey, mom said no. Why don't we go ask dad?
Yeah.
It's in a similar vein as that. Like, I can't get my mom to do anything about anything. Hey, son.
Yeah.
Would you mind asking grandma if
she
could?
Yes.
And coming from her kryptonite that she cannot say no to.
Right.
It's a little diabolical, I'm not going to lie. And that is manipulation in its infancy. But to the degree that you need that extra help, because they don't want to hear a damn word that your son or daughter, because I told you what to do and how to do that, and you listened to me.
And that was how it was with my mother. My dad would never listen to my mom when his dementia got further along. He wouldn't do anything my mom listened to. But it was also hard for her to tell him what to do, because they had they were very much partners. They were very equal in their relationship, and they were partners, and they were best friends. So for her to tell her husband what to do, or that you must take a shower today, didn't always go very easily. Right. But if I walked in the door, Dad would do whatever I asked him to do. And so
that's how you find out which child is your parent's favorite.
Well, if you're an only child, I was the favorite and the least favorite.
And I'm saying that because she's an only child and she doesn't have a sister or brother that she has to call now and be like, haha.
Yeah. I was the favorite and the least favorite. But yeah, I think these are the kinds of things. And so, like we said, going back to baby proofing, child proofing now becomes elderly proofing. So like you said, when it comes to, and even if your loved one is not living in your house,
yes,
they are living in their own house. Like we've said before, you have to keep certain things safe. So medications, like you've said, how to keep them safe, because when you go visit, little fingers and little people get curious.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes maybe grandma forgets that her meds are out. Or
that she left her purse on the chair.
Yes, you don't know what's out. So you have to make sure that the medication can be locked away. The ones that are not being used in that moment. So you might have extras, because you can have, if you just take too much Tylenol, you can have a problem. So keeping things locked away in a code-specific lockbox, a thumbprint, that could be easier for grandma to do, a fingerprint.
Fire safes also have that capability,
yep. So
that you can put a lot of things in there that are indeed would be consumed by fire or damaged by fire, but will stay safe.
Yeah.
And safe away from little hands that are just trying to investigate the world around them.
Right. Yeah, I think those are the kinds of things, and like you said, it was, what your alcohol. Yet again, alcohol use for some elderly with their medications is not a good combination.
And if you've ever told Grandpa, no, you can't have one finger of whiskey, and he tells you which finger you can have, then you understand what we're talking about.
Yes, for sure. This happened with my dad, and my mom is still lucid enough that she knows that she can no longer drink on her medications. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness. But when my dad was still living with my mom, he was on medication he could not drink with anymore. He was going to say all sorts of horrible words to her if she said no. Mm. And so she actually just took it all and gave it all away. No, she gave it all away. Because my dad had really nice whiskey.
Yes.
So she
Don't
gave
pull the really nice whiskeys out. Give them to a friend.
She gave it to a friend. She actually had people come over when I took my dad to a doctor's appointment. And they got to take their pick.
Oh, that would be funny. Just do like a raffle pull
for
all the friends that come over.
But that's all it was. So my dad, the whiskey was gone.
That's the next reveal.
My dad was safe.
It's a whiskey raffle for
that's all it was, yes. I mean, those kinds of things. And then there are other things, especially living in Texas, that some equipment that we might all own, or you might not own. Your friends could own it. You don't know. But you need to keep little ones and the elderly safe. This also...
The elderly are usually, and I say this of sans dementia, of cognizant mind enough that they're not going to mess with something bigger than them from a piece of equipment.
Right.
But little ones are not.
No.
They are fearless and they are capable. And I've heard story after story about how did my 3-year-old get on top of the refrigerator. They will move anywhere in any space that they think they can. And especially things that are bright colored and tractor-esque that they've seen cartoons about their whole upcoming, and they're just fascinated with them. Yeah. And Daddy even drives a tractor when he mows the lawn or whatever. They want to be involved, and they're curious and keeping their hands away from sharp parts, just being around the machine. I've got a scar on my leg from when I was 3 climbing on a boat trailer because I was driving the boat and getting down. I hit the license plate and I put a 3-inch gash in my leg.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, there's just little things that you have to be safe with. And like we said, even when you have teenagers, they have friends. Your teenager might know the rule in your household, but they have friends that come over. They might push the rules, or they might not know the rules, or they could be going through some silent crisis, and they know certain things are in your house and how to keep those things safe so that those children are safe also. Yet again, thumbprints, keeping things locked away. My mother sold certain things, pew-pews, because when my dad's dementia got so bad, she was afraid he would find them and think something happened in the house and something could go wrong.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things. Yet again,
this
also comes
planning,
and how to keep your loved ones safe, but your children safe, because yet again, we're sandwiched. We have little ones, we have teenagers, we have elderly loved ones, and if no one's told you, the teenage brain does not become a full adult until they're 26.
28.
Oh, now it's 28.
Well,
Oh, no, they added 2 years.
For some, it's 33.
Okay.
Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
Well,
I've got a 19-year-old as living proof.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
So these are the things that, they make rash decisions. But this also is aging in place. This is keeping people safe and keeping your little ones safe when they either come to visit grandma or grandma's going to come live with you.
Exactly.
Because we need to make it good for everybody. Now let's think. We also need to talk about how things you would do. This is one. Yet again, wheelchairs, walkers, all the things that take up space, right? Yet again, going in and out of the garage.
In and out of the garage and in and out of the backyard, especially if you have a pool. I've been to your house before.
Yeah.
I know that y'all have taken excellent precautions
Yes.
on making the pool space.
We are very safe at our house and our pool.
From gating it to
Yes.
covering it in the off winter
Yes.
months. Those are excellent ideas for people who have not really thought about that. Because kids are curious, kids like being in the pool. They're like, why can't I be in the pool? I was in the pool last weekend. They will.
Right.
And most kids don't drown from being in a pool. Most kids drown from not being able to get out of the pool.
That's correct.
So from that perspective, making those places safe. But as you talk about the garage,
Yep.
most garages in Texas step down.
Yes.
Just recently have most buildings become flat slab
Yes.
across the board,
Yep.
and it's a transition threshold.
Mm-hmm.
But that vast majority of them that I've experienced step down in some way. The step down of 3 inches, while that might seem like an even low-rise step for us, for someone who's elderly and aging in place or a little one, that's something that they're going to have to crouch down and kind of move step to step.
Yes.
Or it's going to cause such an impact on their knees and hip that they're going to lose their balance and they trip and fall, which is not an outcome that any of us
Now
want.
we have one of those where you come out from the house into the garage, and there's one level, and then we have that step down to where the cars are.
Yes.
I would suggest if you have a loved one living with you, their house, whatever it is, that yellow caution tape or red caution tape to see, because with my mother, she doesn't always have the ability to see the difference if it's tone on tone.
It's all gray.
It's all gray. It's tone on tone. She has a really hard time with that. So if you could break up that visual plane so that they can even see, oh wait, this is going to step down.
Tape, consider illuminating the space in a better way or with brighter bulbs in the home as well. A lot of trips are because they are unable to identify that transition in color. So if you have a rug that's similar to the color of the wood floor and they don't see that the edge is right there, it could cause a spatially displaced ideal in their mind for them that they would trip over. But if the illumination was greater in the home, you wouldn't have that issue because they would be able to see those crisp lines of difference.
Yeah, I mean, my mom would, every time she comes to visit me, I make sure that I help her. I have her by the elbow. I help her up that tiny little step. We've all tripped on it. I've tripped on it. I forgot to fall over.
I've thrown groceries across my house.
I mean, it's the tiny little step.
Everything in your arms.
But yet again, you also have a toddler, and that tiny little step is a lot of space for them, and they're going to go flying too. So I think just having that tape there too, especially where you're going to walk and do that little step down, that's really smart in an older home because they tend to be that way. But then, like you said, keeping things in the garage safe. Yet again, we need to talk about dangerous
40 to 40 inch walkways. If you've got stuff, I'm not saying that you're a collector of any means, but if you've got stuff accumulated in your garage that you're not going to use in the next year or two, or haven't used in a year or two, consider donating it, getting rid of it, selling it, whatever you need to do, but create those spaces of a 5 by 5, 25 square foot area for them to turn around and move in. Those 40 inch to 48 inch walkways and spaces for them to move safely and comfortably in. Anything that you can move from the garage that has sharp edges, whether it's lawn mowing equipment or tools in general, get them up off the floors, onto the walls, into the shed outside, wherever you can make space for them that isn't in a common area space that they're going to be moving into to do laundry. Speaking of laundry, being able to grip and hold and pull and open, having a top load versus a side load washer. Top loads are incredibly difficult for people who are already in a chair or already having difficulty navigating. They're very difficult to anchor to a wall, and they're probably the first place somebody's going to try and push up and support themselves on as they age, not knowing that that could topple over onto them.
Especially since if they're so deep, you have to, to be able to reach so far down into that top loader.
Or worst case scenario, you have the bucket problem or the trash can problem where you fall into it.
And then your feet are dangling outside.
Yes, you're going to have one heck of a time because those don't just knock over.
Yes. And those, yet again, these are things I don't think about because my mother doesn't live with me, but if I thought about it, my washing machine is very deep. I bought the deep one because I wanted to be able to
trigger
wash.
Your paranoia and your OCD.
I wanted to wash those king size sheets. I wanted the deep, big tub. But that was how those go, right? And then also in the garage, keeping pesticides, poisons, those kinds of things up and out of the way for your loved ones, little and big. These are all things. And also your shoes. How many times, keep your shoes away from the doorway because they're a tripping hazard. And we all kick off their shoes before we walk in the house, and they're all piled up at the doorway of the garage. And you need to find a new place for that because that's not safe anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't feel attacked at all.
Sorry. We can talk about it later, I promise.
Love intervention.
I'll give you a cookie.
Okay.
I'll feel better.
I need a gold star on my card.
Okay. And then, like we said, the pool.
Yes.
If you have a pool, outside space, like you've said, I have a large amount of space between my back door and my pool, but it is also fully gated with a metal gate, and I have a cover that goes on over it. So if you're coming into a house, what's the thing you're going to put on the door?
As far as
so if you're on the back door, or is there anything special besides just a regular
if you
lock?
can't afford to partition off the entire pool, perhaps you can start by partitioning off the patio or a portion of the patio from the larger yard that's available.
Yep.
So that you have a cordon space to keep the little ones or the grown ones. That's something that's economical that you can also do to kind of, basically you're doing the same thing. You're just disallowing access.
Right.
And from that perspective, that's something that you can do.
I like the alarms on the doors that sound like they're so ear piercing, but you open that door and it goes off. No, it's like an ear-piercing alarm.
It's like an emergency door.
Yes. And every time you open that door, if you don't turn it on and off, it's the neighborhood will know someone has gone out that door.
Well, and if you have multiple points of access throughout your home, there may be certain areas that are 100% inaccessible, non-navigable, and nobody goes there. Like most people have a door entry into their attic.
Oh, yeah.
So if someone is upstairs, then that's an area that they don't have any business being in whatsoever. So that might be indeed the little ones for that matter.
Yes.
So that might indeed be a place that you place those types of alarms to where nobody within 6 houses has any questions on whether somebody opened that door.
Because you've gone deaf. I think there's that. And then also, like you said, putting in the gate, even if it's on your patio, if you can't afford to do it all the way around, and I do have to say, I talked to my pool guy. He said, if you have little ones and you have a pool and you have girls, you can get away most of the time with a shorter gate. Like they have those flex gates that are anchored into the ground when you put them in, or you can take them away during the season.
Yes.
He said, boys, if you have a boy, you buy the highest version of that fence because boys will climb over that.
Rapid and razor. I mean,
but you keep them safe because they said, no, the boys will climb those 3-foot versions. Yeah. They're like, if we find out you have boys, we will 100% try to get you to buy the 5-foot version.
Fortunately
because
or unfortunately,
boys are going to climb.
We have a genetic will to overcome. And that's going to, whether it's getting on top of the refrigerator at 3 years old or it's climbing over, something that's navigable that if I run fast enough, I could make it over that.
Well, and then so I came from a water family. We always spent all our summers at the beach. My dad was a sailor. He loved it. We had a Hobie cat when I was a kid, so we sailed all the time. Every vacation included beach, beer, and a boat.
And a barbecue. All bees. Bees in all the subjects.
That's all we ever had.
Yes.
And I grew up with a pool, but my dad had really strict rules around the pool because he grew up in an area where people would come in from the inner city, and he remembered they didn't know how to swim, but they'd be like, "Oh, summertime, go to the pool," and bad things would happen. So I've always been around water. My dad would have gravitated towards the pool, and so yet again, these are things that can keep your elderly loved ones safe. If they're visiting you, if they're living with you, or if they are in a home that had their own pool and now you need to keep them away from their pool.
And again, it's about redirection. It's not about
It's not always saying no.
You're not putting them in a prison. No. You're not trying to accomplish that in any way. If anything, it should feel the exact opposite of that. Mm-hmm. What you're trying to do is allow them to continue to grow older with dignity and respect, and the ability to do at least as many of the quality activities of life, daily living, the things that you can do on your own still. Granted, there are some things that just go by the wayside as you get older, but to the degree that you can empower them, I guess is the best way to say it.
That's 100% true. Yeah, empowering them, letting them know that you're not taking them away from what they've known and loved their whole life. My grandmother lived in the same house for 40 years. We tried to keep there as long as physically possible, to the point that my uncle put a padlock on the basement door so she could not go down and do the laundry.
Right.
Because she was a housewife. That's what you did. Friday is laundry day.
Yeah,
Friday is laundry day, and you go do the laundry, which meant she would have been down in the basement by herself, whether she fell down the stairs or could not get back up. What do you do? It's not, the first thing to do is not saying, grandma's getting old and we have to just move to assisted living.
Right.
That's not what we're saying. I did this with my mom. I moved her from one very large 4,200 square foot house to a smaller, in my mom's opinion, 3,600 square foot house.
Based on how much of the house she could actually get around.
Yes, but then the woman lived in like 3 rooms, right? And so then I made sure that those rooms, yes, she would kind of maybe, what's over here? What's in this room? Okay, it's the guest room. I don't really go over there. But every single room she was in on a daily basis all the time, I made sure was safe for her.
Right.
Like we said, grab bars, locks on things that I did not want her to get into. The other thing we didn't say this about aging in place too is that there are companies you can do a subscription with, and it's this medical alert safety. I can't get up button, but my mother's had so she had the button. She had a lock that kept the key on there that the firemen knew what the code was. Like I told the city, kind of like you would if you had. So they wouldn't knock the door down if anything should happen. They said, here's the code to this house. Here's the key.
Right.
They could get in.
It's like a fireman's lockbox.
It's a fireman's lockbox, but on your house. That was really great. And then it also came with these buttons that I stuck in the one right under the counter. So if the counter went like this, I stuck it right here on the cabinet under the counter. So God forbid she were to fall. She could reach
up or touch it.
And I did one in the bathroom, right on the side too. So that way, if she didn't have a button, this was something that I found that, you could push.
And it would alert.
And it would alert, and then there was a box. They would call her first and say, "Hey, Peggy, are you okay?" And it was a live person.
Right.
And if she did not answer within a certain amount of time, then they called, the police or the firemen. This is also something that you possibly could do with little ones if your loved one's living with you, right?
Or
Grandma fell, you fell, whatever happens, they know. Alert. Sorry. We talked about this last week. Timers. That you could teach your 5-year-old, if something should ever happen and you find that you can't find an adult to help you in that very moment, but maybe grandma might have fallen, whatever, here is the button. Right. This is the call the police button, but you only, it's the same discussion you have when you talk to them about calling 911.
Right.
Here, this is only used, this is not to play with, but this is to be used in case of with an emergency. And I think that's something that you could do if your loved one's living with you with little ones, because then they are also the hero. It's mythical.
You're empowering the small children.
Yes.
To take care of the big children.
Yes, and it's mythical and it's special, and you only touch it if it's a very important thing. And so, because maybe now that people don't have landlines, maybe they can't get to the cell. There's not a cell phone.
If their cell phone is not on them, and they can't.
Yeah, or you have a 5-year-old. How are they going to call 911? At least this is a way for your little ones to be able to help.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea.
And I thought it was a life, and to put it in places where your loved one, if they should fall on the floor, could still reach it, because if it's up high, that's not going to do them any chance. Yeah, so these are things that I think are also really helpful. And then, like we said, there's just having someone like Chris come into your house, look things over, find, and it doesn't have to be Chris. If it's Chris, if you live in DFW and it's Chris,
the only thing I caution you against is that if you do reach out to someone else and you understand that there are other contractors that are professionals in this arena, make sure they're at least asking you the same questions of the things that we're going over and that we're talking about, because if by chance they aren't, they might be looking at it from a different perspective with a different motivation, and they may not be the contractor for you. Right.
And then what are you, real quick, if someone were to call you and said, I need you to come and do the evaluation with me, walk through my house, this is what we're planning, this is how we see, this is our forever home, this is what we're thinking of. My mother will be moving into this house because we bought this house because it has a second master on the first floor, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And they say, yes, we want to make these choices. How do you tell people not to get scammed by contractors? Like when it comes to payment real fast, how are you, is there a certain deposit amount?
There are many, many different schools of thought in relation to contracting. I have my own school of thought, because at the end of the day, when you decide that you're going to do something, you're going to pay for that to be done anyway. So some people will ask for a 50% deposit. I personally ask for 70% because I'm nobody's bank, and I didn't wake up in the morning and decide that I wanted to do all of this extra work and use my money to get it done so that I could get your money. You can also partner with a bank and do it on a draw schedule to where 100% of the money is now in an account that you don't get to touch and I don't get to touch until I hit specific earmarks of progress. So these are all situations where you can really kind of ensure that your insurance is another thing. If they are, the Better Business Bureau is definitely a good accolade to have. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're the end all be all. I would go with reviews on Google before I would go with a BBB stamp, because at the end of the day, that's pay for service. Anybody that wants to be on the BBB can pay to be on the BBB.
Okay.
But when it comes to your 5-star reviews and the people that have said what they're going to say about you online, that's a lot more difficult to fake. Or just what I like to say, pay for an accolade, so that people will believe that you're better than you are.
Well, and ask around. Ask your neighbors.
Absolutely.
Go on your local mom's Facebook page, because those moms are ruthless. They will tell you what is what.
They are brutal.
They will tell you if they are amazing, and they will tell you if they want them to never do business in town ever again.
And they will also tell you them if you will make a good Santa for the Christmas party.
Yes. Construction Santa, right here.
Could very well be.
He's going to come to your town, I promise. I've got it all planned out, folks. But no, so those are the kinds of things. I know that was really quick at the end. That was just, but I just want people to know that it's like, I don't want people to get scammed, especially when it comes to the elderly. There are snakes out there.
Wise counsel and good advice should be
Yes.
free. There's no reason why money should transact
Right.
until you have an agreement with the person or with the company. So that being known, ensure that you have a list of questions. Become educated about what you're trying to do. I'm not saying become a DIY professional.
No.
I'm just saying that there are ways, and the interwebs nets is amazing because it has all sorts of checklists. And again, if people aren't asking you questions that are on your checklist, maybe they don't have a checklist of their own, and you should find someone who does have a checklist.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. And then, like I said, know ahead of time. Say, you know what, we know this is what we want in this home because grandma's going to move in with us. How do we make it safe for her before she ever needs to be here? Or, God forbid, something happened to you, it's already put in place and you're ready to go.
Right.
And then keep your little ones safe. You know, they learn by doing. And so you have to sometimes tell them this is not doable, and they
Children
learn not
learn
to
by doing. Adults do. Older folks watch everybody else do.
That's true.
And so, from that perspective, while you're busy doing and they're busy learning to do, and everybody else is watching everybody else do something, there's very little time to do all of the things. So, finding somebody that does have that experience, that skill set, and the teams in place to make those things and those dreams come true. Those are definitely people that you want to have in your pocket.
Yeah, we want to let our loved ones live in their house as long as possible, like I said, with dignity and the ability to still feel like they have some independence and they're not totally dependent on strangers or a burden to their loved ones. So let's try and help them out, okay? So call Chris if you're in DFW, Dragon's Eye Construction. We'll make sure that all his information is on the page for you to be able to call him. And if not, if you don't live in the area, then you will be able to find someone I know who's trusted and very helpful, and will be able to help you and your loved ones be safe. Okay? All right. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you all again. See you soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye,
Good seeing
guys.
you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Sandwich Stories. I really hope you learned some new things and enjoyed it. If you did, tell a friend, tell your mom, tell your sister, tell your dad, tell everybody you know to also listen. Maybe they'll learn some new things, how to help each other out, and find us at Sandwich Stories Podcast. Thanks so much.